The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome to a part 2 of our interview with Dunes Brewing. If you have not listened to part 1, episode 164, recommend that you stop what you're doing right now, go back an episode, and listen to that. If you did listen to episode 164 already, welcome to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast. This is Dave, once again, your host and author. You've heard my voice before, and you've heard their voices before. We are back in Port Orange for part 2 of our interview with Dunes Brewing, just underneath the Dunlawton Bridge, just south of Daytona Beach Shores and Daytona Beach itself. Remember, we are going to be speaking to co-founder Michael Benedict and Sasha Staton, the advertising manager for Benedict Marketing, one of the other businesses that Michael owns. And with this one, we're going to start getting into kind of what they have at Dunes Brewing and a little bit of the future. Plus, we'll talk about their interesting penchant for holding full-scale luchador wrestling matches in their parking lot and everything that the Dunlawton Bridge had to do to hold the overflow crowd for such an interesting event. There's a lot going on there. Very, very happy to hear all about it and share that with you. So we are back at Dunes Brewing with part 2 of our interview with Michael Benedict and Sasha Staton. Enjoy. And so another thing that you sort of mentioned when it came to Dunes Brewing, because you've got so many different breweries, and obviously you take a look at the photos for World's Most Famous, and it's very much a bike week dive bar. We took a look at Red Pig, and we took a look at even, I think we actually went into Tomoka before it closed. This location has the most different decor vibe setup than almost any of the other breweries that I've ever been to, because it sort of took the coastal but went for it, which I guess this is how beachy is this? Because you could almost say maybe it's a little touch on the New England, or is it very much this is what coastal Port Orange, this is what a person who worked the sea 50 years ago when that photo was taken, hopefully I can get a picture of it for social media. Is this kind of the vibe that you were looking for?
Yeah, so probably a combination of a lot of that, right? I mean, it's my wife designed this place. Her family, her mother's a phenomenal designer, has built a lot of great things in this town. Her brother's a developer, has built some great stuff. That's a very creative family on design and approach, because to us, there's a lot of value to that. You want people to feel comfortable, but yeah, the coastal side of this, yeah, there is definitely a feel of the New England, because a lot of white, clean lines. So that definitely invokes that New England feel, which, was the main fishing seaport of America in the beginning. And so, yeah, that's transcended down, I think, Florida coastal, which we have a lot of oysters here. We got a lot of great oysters locally you can eat right out of the water. And so you see that here, you see that rustic feel, but we're Dunes Brewing. Like we are literally sitting on top of a historic coastal dune. So that to us is how the name came about. We wanted to emphasize that, and we wanted to emphasize the water and the locality of it. Yeah, a gator is maybe not think of an ocean animal. However, they are in the ocean, and they are very coastal. And prior to probably humans being all over this area, they were all over that river.
I thought they were just freshwater.
Yeah, you'll definitely get an alligator. It's rare, but someone who's grown up surfing, I don't anymore. I've gotten too large to hold a surfboard up. But I was fortunate never to see an alligator, but I saw pretty much every other animal. But friends have seen them out there, and that's. I get scared when I see a manatee in the ocean, because that's very abnormal to me, but because it looks like a sea monster. I couldn't imagine surfing across and seeing a gator. A shark's no problem. You know what to do. An alligator, I'd freak out, right? I mean, this is here in the area. This was killed here, right here in this area a long time ago by my wife's father. So my father-in-law. And he's gotten, and a lot of the pieces are family driven, right? So you have the marlin over there is caught by my wife's brother, Jack. And
that's a real marlin?
That was a real marlin. It clearly doesn't look like it with the paint. Yeah. He also painted it himself too. And it's a great piece, but we have those right offshore, right? So you have beautiful marlin right offshore. We have a sailfish on the other side, also caught by the family. That was not. That thing is just a crazy story behind it. It's
a giant moose antler.
Yeah, Irish elk, which is extinct now. That was found in a bog in Ireland that my father-in-law found in a museum on the west coast of Florida. They allowed, the Smithsonian Institute has the original. They allowed 3 molds to be made for museums across the country. The one in this small little museum in the west coast of Florida had one. They were shutting down. The guy was retiring. It was one of those old Florida antiquity road stop museums, right? Okay. And he offered to buy it, and he had it out at his farm for the last 20 years. And when we were opening the brewery, he's like, you all should put this up. And I was like, what the heck does that have to do with coastal or dunes? And I was like, whatever. And my wife was adamant that it would look awesome in here. And you know what? That's probably the most talked about thing because it's so crazy looking, right? It really does like grab a hold of you. And while it may not have coastal, it was found in a bog. And it's just a cool piece, right? It's so different, but it fits, right? It's weird, but it fits. It doesn't feel out of place, which I thought it would be. I thought this has nothing to do with the ocean or coast, but to her credit, it complements it quite well.
I will say there's a special sort of craziness that the beachside areas tend to have. So
absolutely. When you got crab and grouper and old signs from the area, it's maps of the area, local artists. There's a lot of local artists here. Some are painted right on the walls. Some are painted on our bar. Those are almost everything you see in here from an art standpoint was either made or created in Florida. And so that's pretty cool. There's very, very few things that aren't.
Awesome. So let's talk about the beer a little bit, because I know when you first opened, you had 6 of your beers on tap. Have you been able to increase that over the past few years?
Yeah, I never know. I took a picture when we got here because I don't know exactly what's going to be on tap at any given point. We try to have certain ones, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different beers on tap right now that are made here. We feature other things like cider and seltzer from other breweries, but we won't feature another beer. The only one we have beer is a non-alcoholic. We don't make a non-alcoholic, but we found the Mango Cart NA is a phenomenal. It's a great beer.
I realized the Golden Road made it.
Oh yeah, I didn't either until I saw one. I was like, why are we selling Mango Cart here? And they're like, it's non-alcoholic. And I was like, oh wow. So I tried one, and it's fantastic, right? Huh. So it's great that you can have a quality beer if you're drinking non-alcoholics. Otherwise, not that Beck's and the O'Douls are not, but they're mass run. So it's more of a craft, which fits our style, right? Craft brewery, craft non-alcoholic. But those 10 beers we have on are not the 10 beers we opened with. I'd argue probably only 2 of those are on there or ones we opened the brewery with. We try to always have our blonde on. Yeah, it's a classic. So, I don't know what to get. Try the blonde, right? We know you're going to be happy because it's the most easy to drink, most appealing, non-offensive beer we have. And then we always have an IPA. Sasha mentioned earlier, we always have our IPA on tap. So those 2 we prefer, partner-wise, always have the black lager, Schwarzbier on. It's our favorite beer. It's just absolutely great. Not a lot of people make it, but the ones that do a great job. Jeremy does a phenomenal job at it. And to me, it's that next beer, right? You have a blonde. I don't drink dark beer. I don't want a dark beer. Well, try this. Yeah. And when people try it, it's because it's so clean, so smooth, but it has that caramelization, that little bit of roasted flavor that you just don't get in a lighter style beer. Yeah. By virtue of the grain just doesn't allow it to come out, but in that beer it does, and I think it's a great kind of entryway to other bigger beers. Because it shows you that dark beer is not scary, right? It's smooth, easy drinking. I love that beer. I think it doesn't ever taste like a dark beer, but it's got the body and character to it that does.
I was going to ask, of those beers, which are the ones that you and your two partners mandate always be on tap? Is it the blonde?
Well, it's the black lager. Oh, it's a black lager, and we don't get it. And to Jeremy's credit, as much as we hound him over, if there's any beer we probably pressure him and Chase, who's our cellarman, over making, it's definitely the black lager. And anybody in here absolutely will tell you, we always say that's got to be on tap. And when it's not, we're like little children. We complain and complain. And sometimes he's like, we're just not going to make it right now. I've got other beers in there. We got other beers we got to make. And I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of pressure he feels from us on that. But we respect that he won't do it because he doesn't feel right to make it then.
Okay.
And so I want him to have the right product, to the right grains, the right yeast, the right what he can get, and to be able to make it right. I don't want him to be forced to make something he's not proud of. And so if he doesn't feel like he can get the right product to make it correctly, well, then I have to grow up and realize it's just not going to be ready today. And so we do have it on tap now. And I love it. It's phenomenal. You're going to try it here in a little bit because that's a beer you have to try here.
Okay, perfect. What about your customers? Which are the ones that they come back and say, well, why don't you have this one on tap? That one.
So I'll let Sasha talk here in a second because Sasha does a phenomenal job representing the brand, and she probably knows more about our customers than I do. But if we don't have IPA, you're going to hear that, right? That's kind of a deal breaker for most people. If you walk in, and I agree with that. If you walk in, there's not an IPA on tap, because that has become the micro craft brewers' differentiating point, right? If you have an IPA in a brewery that's made right on site, it's going to blow anything away in a can or a bottle. Just kind of do it. I don't care how great that IPA is. That can be made. There's argument for some phenomenal IPAs, and they are. But in a can and a bottle, I put up any local brewery's IPA up against that because it's just going to be better. And so if you don't have that on tap and you came into a craft brewery and it's not, I agree, you should be upset, right? And we fail sometimes and don't have it on there. And that we all know it's a big problem. We all know, crap, we don't have IPA for the next few weeks. We're going to hear it, and we hear it pretty quickly on the review sites, Facebook, Instagram, Yelp, and fairly enough, right? That's shame on us, but stuff happens. It's a manufacturing facility. We can make a whole batch and not be happy with it. Sure, we could probably sell it and make money, but we dump it, right? It just doesn't work. And because at the end of the day, that's all you got. You got your name, and Sasha is responsible for protecting that to all ends, right? So Sasha, I'm going to let her talk in a minute here because I've talked quite a bit, and you can probably tell my voice has changed a little bit. But, she protects the brand. And so, Sasha, what do you think our customers want?
So when someone has their tried and true go-to beers, that can range for anything from dark to light. But when we have a new beer that's just hitting the tap, a new beer release, there is something about wanting to try that exclusive, brand new to the brewery beer. And we have such pride in the beers that Jeremy makes. Almost every beer release is accompanied by a beer release party. And we have made such a reputation for ourselves as Dunes Brewing to kind of be known for our beer release parties. And when I first started, funny story, it was about 6 months into working for Michael at the advertising agency. It was coming for our annual beer release of the Mexican lager Brochacho. So Michael came to me.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the can up there. It's interesting to see a party for a Mexican lager.
Yep.
The parties tend to be reserved for the big barrel aged. Here's our bomber. Here's this massive thing, or maybe even something seasonal like Oktoberfest, But a Mexican lager?
Yeah. So, and by the way, that beer is one of my favorites. Love the taste. But as you can see from the crowler right there that we designed, the logo is a lucha libre traditional Mexican wrestler to go along with the Mexican lager. And every year we host a beer release party in honor of Brochacho coming back. We do that on or around Cinco de Mayo. And Michael came to me and said, this year I want to do something big and I want to have live Lucha Libre wrestling in the parking lot.
Yes.
And at first I was like, you're joking, right? You can't quite possibly be serious. And he was dead serious. And that's one thing I love about Michael is he's got such a big vision and knows and puts a lot of trust in myself and our team. He knows we can make it happen. I didn't have that trust in myself. At first, I was like, I'm surely getting fired if I don't get these wrestlers. But, Michael believed in me, and somehow I was able to find a Lucha Libre wrestling group, and we had them for our Brochacho beer release party. And it was probably one of the best events that we've had here. It was crazy. I mean, we had people lined up on the bridge watching. We had a full wrestling ring in the parking lot. I think there was 10 matches. I mean, it was done so great by the wrestling group that came and did it. It's definitely going to be a repeat event. But like I said, having such pride in the beers that are new to the lineup, we try to do these beer release parties to go alongside it. We just got done with our Oktoberfest beer release party to celebrate the Oktoberfest and Fest beer.
You had an Oompa band in here, right?
Yep. We had a polka band set up, and it's not just, oh, hey, we're throwing a party tonight, come try the new beer. No, we take great pride in our event planning and really throwing a great party. To your point earlier about the community, we throw these parties throughout the year. They're always free. They're always family friendly. They're always fun. And we just kind of go, in my opinion, we go above and beyond as a brewery to really make this a special experience for our guests and our customers, and to really kind of gather everyone together to not only try the beer, but to have a fun time at our brewery.
And that's actually a good question or a good idea, because one of my questions is in terms of a social media presence and that sort of image that you want to portray. You could go beach coastal, but we're surrounded by businesses and everybody's trying to do beach coastal. How do you differentiate your message and your brand from not only just the regular businesses that are around, but also the breweries that are around that you're sort of working with? So it seems like that seems to be more what you focus on.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely know at the end of the day that we want to promote the brewery and promote the events coming up. But I think what sets us apart is kind of knowing a little bit about our market and a little bit about our customer base and what they like, and trial and error over the years of what do they enjoy on a daily basis? What do they enjoy for a big event, etc.?
Do you have to focus on other seasons that come in? Because obviously next week is going to be Biketoberfest. I would assume that you get, while not the full concentration of that, at least some spillover from that event.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we keep in mind throughout the year. We kind of look ahead and see what's coming up. Obviously, in December, for instance, it's very focused around the holidays. We don't have a holiday beer coming out per se, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to do something to kind of get the community together. We have a monthly market that we host at the brewery on the first Sunday of every month, where we invite local vendors that have anything from arts to baked goods to treats, food, art, etc. And for December, we're doing a 3-day holiday market. So those are very trendy, and people love being able to shop small, support local businesses. And it's a great way that they can come to the brewery, grab a beer, go outside and inside, shop some of their favorite local artists, and just have another event that they can enjoy with their family.
Yeah, let me add to that, because like Sasha mentioned, I challenged her with doing bigger things and better things all the time, like the Mexican wrestling, which was unbelievable. I told her I want to have a tree farm here and sell Christmas trees, because no one on beachside, and I mean no one, up and down the entire 26 coastal miles of Daytona Beach, you can't buy a Christmas tree on beachside. And so I challenged her that I want someone here selling Christmas trees for those that want to have a tree in their home not have to go across the bridge. And as someone who lives on the beach side, and Sasha also lives on the beach side, it is the closest place is typically the highway. So not that it's far, but I think you should be, as a resident, be able to do those things on beachside. And so I'm very excited. She did find someone, which I thought we wouldn't find. We did find someone that is going to come and sell Christmas trees here on the beachside at the brewery, which now becomes a little more, to your point earlier about community and being a part of the community. To us, I mean, we're not going to make any money on that, nor do we want to make money on that. What we want to do is, as a resident, we know you want that. We hope, we think we do. I know a lot of people that live on the beach that would love to not have to go across the bridge to buy a tree. And then there's a lot of elderly that live on the beach side, especially snowbirds that come down. They definitely don't want to go. And we're going to hopefully be able to find a way to deliver those trees to them so they don't have to worry about getting them to their house. But I want them to know that this is more than just a brewery. You don't have to come here and drink beer. You don't have to come drink anything. But if we have a live event, you don't want to come and spend money, that's fine. Obviously, it helps support us and support what we're doing. But and we did have a lot of people come to the wrestling with their kids. They weren't buying beer. That's fine with us. Come have fun. We're still a community resource, and we take that very seriously. I'm a resident. I was born in the area. I was born in this county. Grew up in this county. I want certain things to happen, and I want to be a good steward of a business. And sometimes you got to look beyond profits and business. While obviously you got to keep the doors open, but I want to make sure that we have things that are bigger, better, and entertaining and valuable. And so when time comes and people say, "Oh, it's a brewery," but they do this and this and this for this community. We do fundraisers here all the time. We donate our space a lot of times to people to be able to use it, and we've become surprisingly. Maybe it's not surprising. It's beautiful in here, but the place to have a baby shower. So how about that? Yeah, how about that? How about that? When we
celebrate
built this,
somebody who definitely cannot drink.
Yeah, the person you're celebrating cannot have beer, nor should they. But I'll tell you, when we were building this, we never thought that, we're going to be the place to go for baby showers. But guess what? The lady that's having the child loves it in here. She feels comfortable in here. We also don't charge for that. It's also before we open typically. And we do a minimum. That's all you got to do. So typically people want to celebrate, and usually those are big mimosa bars and stuff like that. But they can bring food in. We don't sell food here, which we hopefully will one day. We're hoping to build a restaurant in the office space there. But you know what? It's really cool when you walk in and there's a baby shower here. Like, I love it. It's like I walk in at like 10 in the morning, come and drop something off or pick something up or check on something in the back. And there's a huge party going on, like 100 people in here at 10 in the morning. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is so great. And maybe 10% of them are having a beer or a mimosa. And that's not really the point. The point is there's a lot of happiness. And we think one day they'll come back because they liked it in here and say, I've never been here before. So if that brings you in here to experience what we have here to offer, and you're like, I could bring my family back here. I could have a good day. I mean, we bring our kids here. The argument is, or you teach them that this is good or bad. I think it's good to be a part of your family. Like, do stuff with your family. We're not coming here and doing shots and doing beer bongs and so that. We'll have a beer or two, and then we'll go have dinner, or we'll go do this, or the kids will go get ice cream at the dairy bar that I talked about. It's a fun family. They ask to come here. Some of their friends will come and meet them here, and they'll run around, and we got that retention pond out there that I can't tell you how many times our youngest has come in sopping wet because he decided to go swimming in a retention pond, and he still hasn't learned his lesson. Probably won't, because I don't think there's a lesson to be learned. It's fun, and he's having a great time, and that goes for a lot of kids. I know Sasha's two boys. I see them here, and they're running around having a great time, and her husband Ken and her can sit down and have a beer, and they're running around having a great time. Nice. And everything in it is, we try to build it for the family. Like, and that's silly to sometimes maybe say a brewery is built for a family, but it is a place where you can stop in and have a beer or two and have a good time, and that could be 3 hours, right? So, because you grab a board game or play that, or you get into a pinball contest, or you're watching a game on the TV, or we have a musician in here playing music, or like you mentioned the polka band earlier. Yeah, it's and that's a totally different customer, by the way. When you come in, I love it. I come in here and we have our polka band playing for Oktoberfest, and there's customers I've never seen before, and it's typically an older set, and so it's interesting. Early in the day when they start, like 5 o'clock, it's a 70 plus group. By the time they finish, it's a 25 to 30-ish age range.
Interesting.
Maybe 40s. And it's just completely changed because they come early, have a good time, have a few beers, they leave. And then it's a crazy multiple generations because that music is different to each person. Some of that is very feeling of home or a feeling they grew up in that. And others are never seen someone play the squeeze box and go at it and some classic German songs. And it's pretty great. I mean, I always get a kick out of it. And we see kids dancing to it, right? What does an 8-year-old know about polka? Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But you know what? It's a good beat and they're having a great time.
You did sort of mention in the future building a kitchen, building a restaurant here. And I kind of dovetails to the last question that I want to talk about to go a little bit darker is that you do own Jimmy Hula's next door, but it is way too difficult for you to serve Dunes Brewing beer at Jimmy Hula's, even though it's next door.
Yeah, we share a parking lot, and by law, we can't have it over there unless we were distributed, and we're an on-premise beer. I mean, yeah, you can get a crowler and take it with you, but the reality is if you want Dunes beer, and we were very, very specific about it. Obviously, there's the 3-tier system of owning a restaurant and owning a brewery. You got to be careful about how you do certain things. There's other laws you have to follow, but we were out from the very beginning. We'd never wanted to make a brewery that would be distributed because, and then I think there's some fantastic beers that are, but we wanted you to experience what we felt was the right experience with our beer. And that is why you see the brewery you see. So it's an expression of getting to know Jeremy and his wife, Cheryl, and what they care about and what beers he wants to make. There's it's not out yet, and I'm not sure if we're going to make it again. We tested it. It was fantastic. You see the middle can there with the little shells on it?
Yes.
So to me, those are periwinkles, depending on how you grew up. Some people call them coquina shells. Technically, I think they're coquinas, which are little sea snails. In this area, they used to be, you could make a stew out of those. And my grandmother told me it was delicious. I've never had that, but we made a beer out of those.
Ooh.
And to test to see, is that something we can go and get locally on our shore and make something out of it? It was fantastic. So it's like an oyster stout, right?
Okay.
You've got a mollusk. You get a lot of flavor out of that. It has a brininess to it. And so that's kind of an illusion of what's coming, hopefully. But we have some things we have to make sure we do legally correct, harvest those properly, and make sure if we can. But I'll tell you, that is something we want to do here. And the question was not about that, obviously. I jumped around. But yeah, it's troublesome to own a restaurant right next door and not be able to sell your beer at it.
Well, I was going to say, was there any legal way for you to connect the two buildings by like a walkway or a patio or something to have it be one facility and make it Jimmy Hula's bar or brewery and grill, or make it the
There probably
Dunes?
is a way. You're probably I know there's a lot of, some states have already done this where breweries are allowed to self-distribute if they're a certain amount or less. That is kind of in Florida's works right now. Probably maybe 10 years we may see that. That would obviously open that up way easier. We obviously are in support of that. But we do know that distribution has a huge value too, right? There's protective laws in there from a safety standpoint. So we're not either way. If it happens, we'd love it. We definitely support the brewers that want to do it. We believe it's the right thing from a standpoint of the volume that you're doing. And in this case, it makes sense, right? You own a restaurant you can't sell your beer at. So, but we do have some great beer over there, and we do try to get a lot of the local craft beer in there. But that's part of the reason we want to build a restaurant here. And it's funny. It's like, well, are we going to compete with ourselves? Maybe. But I can tell you one thing that's pretty crazy. When we have a taco food truck, we sell tacos next door. When we have a taco food truck in our event, we have some of our best days next door. So it would go to contrary to normal belief. But what it does is it builds more business. And so we also, since we opened the brewery, Jimmy Hula's was first, we sell 20% more beer since after the brewery opened. So we have literally a direct potential competitor. But what it does is it's all tides rise, all ships.
That's amazing.
And that's not me saying, those are numbers. Like the numbers prove we sell now more beer there, and we love it. And I would argue that probably Deck Down Under does too. They do a great job. They have a lot of great beers on tap. They have some local ones as well. And I bet they sell more beer because the brewery opened, because we bring more people here. It becomes more of a destination, becomes more of an entertainment area that you can go get a pitcher of cold beer and some boiled shrimp on the river, watch the dolphins swim. You can go over and grab some seafood at the seafood market at Two Jerks for later that night. You can walk in the Jimmy Hula's, listen to some live music and grab a cocktail and maybe some chips and dip. And then you can finish with a beer here or ice cream at Dairy Bar.
Yeah.
And so in one day, you've done really distinctly different things.
Yeah.
But all in the same place. You park your car once and you walk to everything. And that's why I believe the city of Port Orange has been such a huge fan of not only us, but everybody down here and supporting what we do. And it's really great to see a city behind that, like, hey, we want to make it a better experience for everybody because they know we're all responsible owners, that we're not pushing this party crazy scene. We're pushing having a good family time. And when you go out with your family and you can literally do all those things in one little area, that's why the Down Under district has become a very popular, and we're really proud to be a part of it. We'd argue we've had a little bit to do with that, I think, because we added 2 businesses here. But it was already going well before we got here. I give a lot of credit to what Deck Down Under's done here. They've created this environment for other people to be extremely successful. And even across the street, Brendan at Catfish's, I mean, it's the best. Like, it's such a cool place. And he's opened, and he has another restaurant called the Casual Bird, literally a stone's throw from us.
Yeah, I remember passing that on the way
it's
here.
great coffee, great breakfast. And it's become more and more popular. I mean, I drive by there every morning coming into work, and he's always packed. And when the visitors here, it's crazy, right? I know when I can get in there and when I can't. So you gotta time it right. But it's a phenomenal place. And this whole area, we also have Genovese's right across the street. Fantastic pizza. I mean, I like clam pizza. You don't get that often, but they make a killer clam pizza.
Interesting.
It's unbelievable. It's so dang good. It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you can bring that in here, and we have plenty of times. You can order the pizza, grab it, or they'll deliver it to you across the street.
That's awesome. Let's get some fest beer, shall we? All right, so that is it for our episodes with Dunes Brewing. I do want to thank Michael and Sasha for hosting us and giving us their time. It was an absolutely fantastic day that we spent with them. Next week, we will be back with another episode focusing on Florida craft beer and some amazing fun stuff that is coming up. Very excited. If you want to know what it is, you'll just have to follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at Florida Beer Blog. We are on Facebook at FL Beer Blog, and we are on the internet at floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. Obviously, if you take a look at floridabeerpodcast.com, you will very quickly realize that we are a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network, a collection of really awesome Florida-based podcasts that I strongly recommend you jump into today. And if you want direct information on them, you can always go to floridapodcastnetwork.com. Want to reach out to us? It's easy to do. Just floridabeerblog@gmail.com. If you're listening to us on a podcasting app or on YouTube, you can like and subscribe to us. Recommend that you do so. That way you'll get the notification when our new episodes drop every Wednesday. If you can also leave a review, that is great. It really does help us get the word out, and hopefully you're enjoying it as much as we are enjoying making them for you. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Pekala. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is David, your host and author. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week with another awesome episode of the Florida Beer Podcast. And in the meantime, drink Florida Craft.